With the first pick in the 2006 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Andrea Bargnani from Italy.
By 2006, the Toronto Raptors were in a strange spot. They traded Vince Carter 2 years earlier, leaving Bosh as the franchise cornerstone. Bosh was young, talented, and clearly the future, but the team was spinning in its wheels. A disastrous draft pick in Rafael Araujo and a series of underwhelming trades had left them with a 27-55 record and no clear direction. Luckily, they had a secret weapon. No, I don't mean the pre-Heat dreadhead Chris Bosh. They had a young, prime Bryan Colangelo, the son of the famous NBA executive and the Phoenix Suns owner, Jerry Colangelo. You probably know him more for his Twitter antics rather than his GM moves. This was before he became well known for wearing ridiculously large collars and making his wife create multiple burner accounts for him. Don't ask, long story. At this point, he was still a young, bright-faced GM with a great reputation. He drafted future All-Stars Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire in Phoenix, and helped them free up cap space to sign Steve Nash in the summer of 2004. Now, Mr. Colangelo had a vision. Pair Bosh with a stretch big man to create a dynamic frontcourt duo. And so the Raptors used their first overall pick on Andrea Bargnani, a 7-foot Italian forward who could shoot. It was a historic draft pick, making Bargnani the first European player ever to be selected with the #1 pick. The days of Georgi Glushkov were long gone. Yeah, my bad. Who's Georgi? Back in the 80s, he became the NBA's first player from the communist bloc, breaking grounds for players from Bulgaria. At the turn of the century, European players were definitely a hot commodity, with guys like Dirk, Peja, and Ogalskis making multiple all-star teams. Naturally, teams were looking for young, tall European guys who could shoot the ball, and Bargnani was basically that. His mid-range shot, his range in general, and overall offensive potential made him look like the next Dirk. In reality, other than height and three-point shooting, his game didn't look like Dirk's. But that was the only point of reference scouts and reporters had at the moment. So, they were just going to repeat it over and over and over again. While the potential was there, Bargnani was far from a sure thing. Even during the draft broadcast, Jay Billis bluntly said,
"But he does not rebound, he does not post up, and he is not much of a defender right now. He's not physical. He needs to get his body improved. He needs to get a lot stronger."
Not exactly the words to fire up Raptors fans. In Toronto, Bargnani showed flashes of why he was picked first. He had a solid rookie season, averaging 11.6 points per game, and finishing as the runner-up for Rookie of the Year behind Brandon Roy. The Raptors season as a whole was a success. Bosh led the team to the first playoff appearance since 2002. Sam Mitchell won Coach of the Year, and our dear friend Colangelo was the Executive of the Year. The Raptors looked pretty promising that year. If their top picks could develop properly, and the management could build a team around them, well, they looked like they could be dangerous in the East. But as we know, things didn't turn out that way. While Bosh played great, Bargnani stagnated, and by his second year, he was regularly getting benched due to shooting slumps and poor defense. By 2011, the team was no longer looking like a future force. A couple seasons later, Colangelo was fired, Mitchell was long gone, and they even lost Bosh in free agency. Years later, Colangelo would admit that he was in large part responsible for the Raptors' lack of success. Basically, he tried tanking to secure high draft picks. And honestly, now it makes sense why the Sixers picked Colangelo to replace Sam Hinkie in 2016. After all of that, it was up to Bargnani and a young DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, as we know, things didn't go too well. That year, he averaged over 20 points a game, proving he could be a legitimate offensive weapon. But for every bright spot, there were glaring weaknesses. Let's talk about rebounding. For a 7-footer, Bargnani was historically bad. In 2013, he ranked dead last in rebound percentage among 7-footers playing at least 500 minutes, grabbing just 7.6% of available rebounds. For context, Kyle Lowry, a guy who would end up being one of the best Raptors players in history, often out-rebounded Bargnani, and he was a full foot shorter. I mean, just look at this picture and tell me that isn't insane. Bargnani's attitude didn't help either. When asked about his rebounding struggles, he famously, or rather infamously said, "It's called basketball, not rebound ball." There was also the time where he accidentally called his team the worst team in the NBA. And of course, he claimed he was misquoted on that. And you guys know how Gilbert Arenas and company like talking about Europeans not playing a lick of defense? Well, guys like Bargnani were mostly responsible for that. Although, interestingly, Gil's good friend Nick Young has the lowest defensive win share percentage in history for players that played at least 15,000 minutes. And I'm not trying to start anything, I'm just pointing that out. Despite his flaws, and admittedly there were a lot of flaws, Bargnani was not a complete bust. There were far worse #1 picks than he was. His offensive game was legit. He had a soft touch, could knock down threes, and had a decent mid-range jumper as we mentioned earlier. But his lack of defense, rebounding, and consistency made him a frustrating player to watch, and the Knicks fans know this very well. Bargnani got traded to the Knicks to help the Melo-led team try and make a title run, but he ended up playing just 71 games in 2 seasons for the Knicks, shooting terrible percentages and compiling a solid lowlights reel.
Sets the table for Bargnani, look out!
His Knicks tenure was over when he ripped a ligament in his left elbow on a missed dunk attempt, a fitting end to a terrible relationship. By the time he got to Brooklyn, the injuries have just piled up. His motivation was nowhere to be found, and Bargnani's NBA career was effectively over. Bargnani wasn't Dirk, and he wasn't Darko. He was somewhere in the middle, a talented player whose shortcomings and mindset kept him from reaching his full potential. And even if you're not a Toronto or a New York fan, you shouldn't feel bad for Andrea at all. The dude seems to be living his best life. Just look at this Instagram screenshot from a couple years ago. And you see how he makes no mention of being a former NBA player basically anywhere on his profile? If Bargnani cared a little bit during his career, he definitely doesn't care at all now. But hey, at least we'll always have his ridiculous commercials.
With Primo Pasta and Sauce as part of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle, Andrea can compete game in, game out.
Primo Pasta and Sauce.
Quick and nutritious, simply delicious.
If you want to see what happened to the rest of the players in the 2006 draft, click on this video here. Or if you just want to know what happened to the second pick in the draft, well, I also got this video right here.